I hope that you are seated comfortably, with the light turned down and the curtains drawn.
Somebody there?
Well, hello and welcome back to Ecto Portal. My name is Anthony Anderson and I am your host, and I am here with
Verna Wilson.
my co-host.
Yep.
And we're bringing you another adventure into the Ecto Portal, the land of the paranormal and unknown.
The land of dreams tonight.
That's right. We're going to delve into our dreams, which probably might also lead to our nightmares, which it generally does.
Yes.
They go hand in hand together. First, we're going to find out what we both did this past weekend, which I think we discussed it. It wasn't much, but we're going to delve into it anyway. What did you do this past weekend, Verna?
Well, let's see. On Saturday, I actually went to go meet some friends at a bar. We got together again. My friend Elizabeth, who I discussed a couple of weeks ago, who's an author who writes Gothic novels. I got together with her and her friend Scott. They actually host a night at a bar called the Residential Inn, called Dark Entries, where they play a bunch of Gothic music and they have people get together. And they post.
Is that here in town?
That's here in town.
Where at?
It's at. It's a bar called the Residential, I believe. But if you look under Dark Entries and Elizabeth and her friend Scott, they both host it, and they invite people and they play music from the 80s, all kinds of Gothic music from the time.
Cool.
So it's a fun event, and they were talking about it and just telling me all about it and what nights it's going to be on. And
That sounds like fun.
oh yeah, we just had a drink and just got caught up on our lives too.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. What else did you do?
Well, I updated some pages on my former group, Our Lady of Pain. Our former guitarist, Alan Black, passed away over 20 years ago, and we wanted to honor him. So we went ahead and we updated the Our Lady of Pain page.
And for those that don't know what Our Lady of Pain is,
Oh, Our Lady of Pain was my former group. I started it with Alan Black and Michael Reed, and we all three of us started it together. And we played around the Bay Area, the San Francisco club circuit, and we actually played with what was called the Gothic period, where there was a lot of Gothic and death rock groups in San Francisco, and we played for a few years, and then they changed. They went through several lineups. I was the first vocalist, and then later I left, and Alan became the vocalist and guitarist, and they went through several lineups and became pretty well known in San Francisco for a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
So were you in there? Do you know how many years did the group last total, and how many years were you in it?
I was in it for about 3.5 years, and I believe that the group lasted, at least seven years or so.
Wow, okay.
For a long time. They started in 82, and I believe that they ended in 86. But if I'm wrong, Michael, forgive me, but I believe that 86 was the last of the lineup.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So if you have any stuff lying around in your attics that pertains to the group, be sure and contact them on their website. They'd love to get copies of everything you have.
Yeah, go to the Facebook page. Right now, we changed the Facebook page to it has Alan Black's name, and it's called Alan Black, Remembering Alan Black. I believe that is what it's called, but it's the Our Lady of Pain page. And of course, you can contact me, Verna Wilson, through my Facebook page. Any tapes,
Or Ecto Portal,
photos,
even they could get a
even
hold of
Ecto
you.
Portal, they can get a hold of me. Right? Any tapes, photos, anything you have laying around that pertains to Our Lady of Pain, I'd love to see it.
Cool.
And what about you, Anthony?
Well, I did my due diligence and did my work for the radio show Ecto Portal for the next couple weeks, putting together shows. It takes me about 3 to 4 hours to put 2 shows together, to mix everything and choose everything.
Anthony works really hard on these shows, folks.
Because I'm a perfectionist.
He really is. Yeah.
So I know that everything's going to play smoothly and it's chosen well because I've looked at it ahead of time. I'm not one that likes to rush at the last minute and do stuff, because I think if I'm going to put this much effort into doing it, I want it to be really good for both of us.
Right.
So I did that. What else did I do? I actually watched some older movies I have not seen in years. I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I've never seen that.
It's interesting because they're very different. When I was a kid in 77 is when I first saw it. I was 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. So same year Star Wars came out, same summer.
Oh, yeah, right. They did both come out at the same time. I remember that.
And as a kid, I was more fascinated by the ships and the aliens. And as an adult now, you start to, now being into the paranormal UFOs, I start to look at other things like when all the World War II planes would show up in the desert and they didn't know where they came from.
Yeah, right.
How there was a group of maybe 25 people that randomly got that music message, dun, 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 in their head. And they also had dreams and images of Devil's Tower, where that big meeting at the end of the movie happens.
Huh.
And they all had the image they had to go there. And there's a whole section about, well, where's all these people? The army wouldn't let them come. And the scientist is like, well, they've been invited. All these people have been invited from all over the country. And none of them really know why. They just know they're supposed to be there for that event. So stuff like that I found a lot more fascinating, because I know Spielberg based a lot of it on truth. He went through articles and interviews with a lot of people
Probably
to get
went through a lot of UFO archives, too.
Because he was a believer then. He said he's not so much now.
Right.
Because he says, well, in the digital age, how come we don't have more stuff than we did back then? So, I mean, he's got a point for some of that.
You know, that's kind of what I was mentioning, is that we don't hear so much of it now as we heard in volumes back then, and it's been kind of quiet in that community. But to me, that means no less that something's happening. But he has a point.
Yep.
Yeah.
What else? I also watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest because I'd never seen it before.
That movie. I love that movie.
And I didn't realize how many people were in it that I recognized. I mean, a lot of, like, there were nobodies then except Jack Nicholson, I think. And later on, everyone else became much, much bigger star-wise. Christopher Lloyd, and there's just a lot of people in there. And I was just really fascinated by that. So I just watched old movies and worked on the show. And I did cut our EVPs from our seance, which will be playing after the first music break.
Everybody's going to be hearing that.
So some results of our seance. They're not great, they're not grand, but I'm going to play you what I did find, and you can be the judge. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, everybody can make up their own mind about that.
So other than that, that's pretty much it. So now you know what time it is. Time for
News.
Paranormal news.
Okay, we got paranormal news here for you. Do you want to go first?
I am trying to go ahead and access this. Because
Do you want me to go first while you're doing that?
Why don't you go ahead and go first, and let me access this.
Okay, Linda can't be with us tonight, by the way, to do the paranormal news, so we're going to do it for her, in her honor.
Yep.
All right, so there were some creepy clown sightings in, I believe, in South Carolina. Late at night, people in the neighborhood see people dressed up as clowns just standing on the corner looking creepy. I mean, they have blood and weird makeup, and they're scaring kids and they're scaring regular civilians. And the police can't really do anything because they're not really hurting anyone. They're not breaking any laws. They're just creeping people out. And so they've had a succession of these sightings in South Carolina. But now, 200 miles away in North Carolina, they start to show up there. There was one that actually approached a bunch of kids and said, beckon them into the forest and say, I have candy for you. And so they had one sighting. Someone said there was actually another incident also in North Carolina. So they're starting to pick up. They say it's probably a copycat. So it's not really a paranormal phenomenon, but it's a cultural phenomenon in that it's a copycat and this weird, creepy clown. And now we have a remake of the movie It coming out, so I'm sure that's just going to get all worse.
It's going to make it even more exaggerated.
Exactly.
You know, the one thing that about the clown story, I heard about that story too, but the part about the clowns luring kids into the woods is kind of scary, though.
It is, and then offering them candy.
Yeah, that's
isn't there a law there?
That's freaky. I mean,
can they be picked up for soliciting to children somehow?
That's what I'm wondering.
I don't know. I guess we'll find out when that gets worse.
Yeah. So far they're just spotting them. Thankfully, nothing's happened, and they haven't been luring children.
Exactly. So my next one is in a Peruvian gas station. Actually, I posted this to our Facebook page, Ecto Portal. If you go to Facebook, Ecto Portal, it's a alien visitation at a Peruvian gas station. Literally, it's a gas station like you'd see any other at night. Highway next to it. You can see the lights of the highway. The gas station's well lit. Some of the attendant workers from the gas station are standing outside, and you see what I guess is a little tiny alien, not more than 2 feet, walk along the perimeter of the outside of the gas station. You can just see it sort of walk and float, and they say it looks sort of like balloonish, but it's really, really tiny. And this guy goes out and he gets closer to it, and he sort of stops. He's not sure about it. And then it just slowly drifts up into the air and it floats away. And there's actually 2 different videos of this same incident. So if you go to our the Facebook page and click on that article, you can see the actual video of it. But it's interesting. They don't know if it's real or if it's a hoax. Some other guy, UFO researcher Anthony Choi, insists that it's an entity not of this world. It looked to me more like a balloon that someone was maybe playing a prank, but I don't know.
I do notice though that they discuss a lot of paranormal, a lot of UFO activity in Peru. So I'm not surprised that this happened over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have one last one in Washington Square Park in New York City. I guess Con Edison had to get down to a water main underneath a Greenwich Village sidewalk, which is right next to Washington Square Park. And so they had to dig down. I guess Con Ed did the same area back in 1965. They dug a little bit, and they claimed to have found then 12 skeletons underneath the park.
12 skeletons?
In a chamber. And I guess through bad records, change of employment, nobody really had any more details than that. They left it alone. Well, I guess they went back to have to fix this water main last November. They dug down. They did find an entire open chamber. And it wasn't 12 bodies. What it was there was skulls in there, femurs.
Oh, my God.
Broken fibulas. And they were all piled on top of each other.
All just piled on top, and they can't figure out what the area used to be or where they came from.
Well, they had their theories on it, but what's even crazier is after finding that first crypt, is what they called it, and there was no markings, so they couldn't tell. There was no coffins. There was really no.
Yeah.
They had to dig down below it because the main was below that. They dug down and found a second crypt below the first one. And the second crypt had over 20 coffins in it, well preserved. All the skeletons are intact. In fact, they were so intact, they were able to use them to try and identify who they were.
And did they find out what year it might have been? Or
they did have a clue. On the coffins, it's just the number 18, so they figure it was the 19th century.
19th century,
And I did some research back when I lived in New York. Washington Square Park used to be a potter's field. So it was a graveyard. A potter's field is a pauper's graveyard. It's not an official graveyard, so it's not sanctioned by the church. They can bury criminals. They can bury, prisoners. Anybody who's poor who wants to bury someone, you can go bury them in a potter's field.
So this might have been basically the same thing.
But that's what's funny is it's not, because it's not anywhere near where the potter's field is. It's next to it, and the church used to own the property. So they figure the church is the one that actually set these crypts up. for these individuals. Nobody knows who they are. They don't know who put them there. The church has no record of them because it's been, 100 plus years, I guess.
Yeah.
So they're going to check the dental records, but I doubt they're going to find anything of this long ago. But that's just a good example. Well, the North Beach Library, that was a potter's field where the swimming pool is.
I've heard about that, yeah.
So that was back in 1850. It was a farmer's field, and he got upset when they kept planting bodies in there.
They actually have better ways of researching and finding out about these things than they used to. I mean, they have more technology and more ways to sample these things.
But a lot of times they find them by accident, by Con Edison going in and drilling the ground and say, hey, you got a coffin in your garage.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's by accident. Like when they found that little girl's coffin when they were remodeling that house.
And they told the owners, you have to pay for the reburial or the disposal of this coffin.
Right. So a lot of donors had to come forth and pay for it, including our lodge.
Yep.
And reburied her, and that's a very good example of that.
I thought that was an interesting little peek into New York's history there. So next time
Definitely.
you're wandering around the park, you never know what's underneath you.
You never know, and same around this city as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what have you got?
Well, let's see. I found an article where they actually, two scientists claim that they actually recorded a series of the best-known voices of Bigfoot. And they're they're known as the Sierra Sounds. And they've actually taken the sounds and they've brought them over to scientists and linguists, and they say it's a cross between ape and human, and it's actually some of the language is discernible, but they can't really tell what sort of language it really is.
So they know it's not human and they know it's not a primate, right?
Right. They say it's somewhere in between.
Interesting.
So they said that, and they've been playing it around universities. They've been playing it to different people to try to learn what these sounds really are. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play the sounds for everybody here. I'm going to turn on the video and I'm going to put it on the microphone.
Is your speaker in the front or the back? There you go. So they're interacting.
Okay, should stop it.
Well, that's cool.
Okay, folks, you've heard the sounds of what could be, they feel, Bigfoot.
Interesting.
Now, according to these two guys, they actually went back to the same site some years later. They put the microphones up again on the tree, and they said they recorded the sounds again, but anytime they go near the tree or they go out of their camp, apparently the Bigfoot people run and they won't go near them.
Wow.
So, but I just wonder, with all the technology we have, like as you were saying earlier, Anthony, why don't they put a camera or something this time to actually record them coming up to the microphone?
Night vision game camera. They have so many you can slap on a tree now and it lasts for 2 days.
Right. So I would try to get more evidence.
Maybe they have them.
Maybe they do. So I couldn't understand anything that the video was saying. Does anybody else out there understand it?
If you can translate Bigfoot-ese?
If you can do it, then I'd like to hear about it. I mean, I was listening to it and I thought, well, how come I just don't get it? But
It's interesting, though. I thought it was interesting because you can tell that it's sort of primate, but you can tell there's intelligence going on in language that
right
it's sort of
behind it,
human.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's somewhere in that middle ground. Although people think it's a missing link, how do we know it's just not another species, not like us, not like a primate, but another species that lives somewhere else close?
Right. No, exactly.
And they're not our missing link. They're just another species that's similar to us. Mm-hmm. So they're not maybe a direct missing link, but they're similar to us in different ways. Hey, who's to say we haven't been created before in different ways, and they keep trying to make better and different and better and more intelligent, that we're all just somebody's lab experiment.
That's very possible. In regards to the Bigfoot species, the Sasquatch, I'm not completely closed, but I'm not completely open to it either. I mean, the way I see it is that I know that in some parts of the world, a lot of tribes and a lot of species can remain hidden for a long, long time because it's very hard to get to
like
these
the
parts
Amazon.
of the world. Right. But in California, here, that would be very hard to remain that.
But they're in the
Sierra.
They're Sierra Mountains, all right. And in Canada, they're seeing Alaska, and you got to remember how much of Alaska is unexplored.
Yeah, that's true. But and also, if they've been seeing or they've been hearing Bigfoot and the Sasquatch for that long, there must be more than one, and there has to be different ones running around, or different ones that are in one tribe, because that's been many years, been a long time.
And that one famous one in Northern California in '66, they have the film of.
Oh yeah, I've seen
famous,
that. Yeah.
And later on, found out it was a hoax.
Right.
That the guy on his deathbed said, "No, we got a guy. We actually shot it. It's fake."
Yeah, probably some guy running around in a gorilla suit.
So all our grade school dreams from the '70s are shattered.
Yeah, but it better they find out it's a hoax now before people really believe, hey, that might have been the real thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad he did that. I think others should do that before they check out. Like, tell the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't got anything to. You're not going to miss anything once you're gone. So someone else may find out the truth of it all.
Right. Now, for the second article, this is brought to you by the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult, who we are going to try to get here on the show as a guest, because I think it's a great idea.
What are they about?
Well, they actually travel around the country, and they have all kinds of haunted and paranormal items that are known to be haunted, and they're known to have some kind of paranormal background. Now,
cool.
Now what this article was about, it was about a sword that was actually donated to the museum, and it was donated by some kid who actually came from a very Bible Belt family, and he started summoning demons with it. So he used to use the sword when he summoned demons.
Yikes.
So the family decided to donate it to them, and the sword is actually quite pretty with a embroidered with an embossed flower on it. If you go to the website, the Ecto Portal website, you can see the sword. It has a little daisy on the hilt. It's kind of ornate.
Interesting.
And apparently somebody, I guess one of the women who was handling the sword, she took a hold of it, and she said that she started feeling like she was possessed, and she started talking about blood and talking about killing and talking about that something just overtook her when she handled the sword. And then when the sword got out of her hands, she didn't remember saying any of those things. So apparently, she said like something overtook her when she handled it. So they're being very careful with it. I mean, I think it's still traveling with the museum,
right.
But they're not just letting anybody handle it, because apparently they have to be very careful. They don't want they want to make sure that nothing's really attached to this sword. Yeah.
Wow. And I heard they have to sign a waiver before they can handle any of the items.
They probably do. I'd like to hear more about that. It'll be interesting to have these people on the show.
I guess they travel around the country. You can book them for your events. I know Nick Groff uses them quite a bit for his events around the country. He has the Queen Mary coming up here in February, I guess they're going to be at. So that might be one to attend. But $225 to just attend the event, that's not even the meet and greet. And you have to buy your own room. Like, man, I don't like paying that much for a paranormal event that's local. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
But each to his own. If you want to pay that,
if you want to, it's entirely your choice. But to me, that's a bit much.
Yep.
So, yeah, but they actually go around the country, and they do have a Facebook page and a website, and they have a Twitter site. So.
Cool.
They said to check the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult for their events around the country. And then I have a third article. This one takes place in Sydney, Australia.
Okay.
It's actually a traveling funeral train.
Wow.
Yeah, this train used to travel carrying coffins and their families to a cemetery back in the 1800s, and the cemetery is extremely large. In fact, it grew so large that it had to have its own zip code.
Wow.
So
that's a lot.
So the coffins would ride for free, but the families would pay to get on the train, and the train rode all the way through the station, and it used to carry rows of coffins, this train, and the families would get off, and then they would go to the burial site and bury their loved ones. So actually, this lasted all the way through the 1950s. And then they stopped the funeral train, and now the station and I believe the cemetery, and I believe that part of the old car is now of interest to paranormal investigators. Apparently, inside the station, they've heard voices of children, and they've seen shadows, and they've had some kind of evidence while investigating around the place.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's like a literal museum now. But
place for Jackie to check out next time she's in Sydney.
Jackie, you should check that out, and you should go take a look at the article. I think when you go to Australia, you would be interested in this place.
Very cool. A new location for you to investigate, Jackie. Mm-hmm. Take the death train.
I thought of you, Jackie, when I read this article.
All right. So, sounds good. All right.
Yeah, that's great. That's the news.
Next week, Linda hopefully will be back.
Yep.
And until then, that's the paranormal news.
Paranormal news.
We'll be back.
Dreaming may be an evolutionary technique that helped humanity survive by allowing us to practice responses to threatening situations while we sleep. This would explain why our dreams are often made up of events far more threatening than our waking lives. Finnish scientist Antti Revenuso has shown that while we are dreaming, the part of our brains that determines fight or flight is more active than usual. In addition, the area of the brain that practices motor activity, such as running and punching, is also extremely active, despite bodies being paralyzed during rapid eye movement sleep, the period when dreaming takes place.
I see dead people.
Okay, so now that we've dealt with the paranormal news, the current news, I think we're going to dive into the results from our seance from last week.
Yes.
That's right. And we'll go ahead and play what I've got, and we'll see what you think. Now, all of these you're going to hear the actual piece of whatever. You're first going to hear a chunk of the audio from our seance that contains the anomaly. Then you're going to hear it repeated and probably louder. And then you're going to hear just the anomaly isolated. You're going to hear the anomaly isolated again, cleaned up. Then the anomaly isolated maybe slowed down, and then normal again. And you're going to hear that for each one of these. It goes pretty quickly, though. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So this is the first one. It literally is a metallic sound. So while we were having the seance, we heard that big metallic bang.
Yes, I remember
And
that
we heard it
clearly.
in the monitor speaker in here, but we couldn't explain it. So we're going to play that again here now. That piece. Here we go. Okay, is there less than 5? If there's less than 5 of you here, could you knock once really loudly? Okay, is there less than 5? If there's less than 5 of you here, could you knock once really loudly? So this was not the bang, sorry. This was just a metallic yes, yes. Okay, that one's hard to hear, especially with the studio next
it's
door.
very faint, and there's the music next door.
Okay, this next one we thought was a knock. I think it sounds like hello. Here we go.
Touch our hair, touch us.
Could you tell us what lodge you were from?
Tell us your name.
Did you hear that?
Just heard a knock.
Yeah, that was a knock.
That was a knock.
And it was in here. It wasn't out
And
there.
it was one rap. One rap means
Yep.
hello.
Touch our hair, touch us.
Could you tell us what lodge you were from?
Tell us your name.
Did you hear that?
Just heard a knock.
Yeah, that was a knock.
That was a knock.
And it was in here. It wasn't out
And
there.
it was one rap. One rap means
Yep.
hello.
Okay, that wasn't an EVP. Third one, I get don't leave us.
Can you knock for us one more time?
Wow. That
Yeah, I
was the
just
second
heard
knock.
that's
Yeah.
the second knock.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
By the way,
Can you knock for us one more time?
Wow. That
yeah,
was the
I
second
just heard
knock.
that's
Yeah.
the second knock.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
By the way,
Okay, and the next one is, it sounds really strange, but it sounds like don't go in Latin and they'll hear your people. Okay, did you if you died after the earthquake, can you give us a knock? Okay, did you if you died after the earthquake, can you give us a knock? No, isolated. Okay, and the next one is, this is the bang, the metallic bang from the monitor speaker that we heard when we were in here.
Knock loudly, because we got music in the
yeah,
background.
we have music in the back, so we need to hear your knock
I
pretty
guess
loud.
this is just the knock. Weird.
Oh, okay. You've seen
Okay.
us before.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And repeat it.
Knock loudly, because we got music in the background.
Yeah, we have music in the back, so we need to hear your knock pretty loud. Oh, okay. You've seen
Okay.
this before.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And now I hear the next one, should we be Rebecca's? And then you hear a knock for yes. So this is in reply to, should we become Rebecca's?
I remember that very well.
Okay.
Would you prefer us to be Rebecca's? Knock once, yes. Knock twice, no.
Oh, you prefer us to be Rebecca's. Okay.
Well, that was clear.
That was very clear.
Okay.
That was actually one of the
and-
clearer knocks. I mean,
It
they were
was.
all clear, but that one was a little louder.
And this is the bang, like I said, this is finally the bang heard in the studio speaker monitor. I think it says hello with the bang. At the same time, you hear hello. I guess you have your marching orders.
I'm not a Rebecca, but I am thinking about joining the Rebeccas.
There you go. Okay, that's the original. Okay, that was,
That was interesting.
but it came through the speaker.
That came through the speaker.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that.
I
yeah.
hope that's probably on this recording because that was not out there. That was in
Yeah, that-
here.
that
Has
came
to
in
come
here.
from a microphone. Nothing
Yeah.
can make that sound
That was
without
bizarre,
the microphones
wasn't it?
too.
That was.
Here it is again. We're recording, so hopefully that will play back. That's really cool. Can you say something really loud into this microphone? Here's repeat. I guess you have your marching orders.
I'm not a Rebecca, but I am thinking about joining the Rebeccas.
There you go. Okay, that was,
That was interesting.
but it came through the speaker.
That came through the speaker.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I
after
heard
this,
that,
I'll
I
yeah.
hope
isolate
that's
it. You'll hear
probably
just
on
that.
this recording because that was not out there. That was in
Yeah, that-
here.
That
Has
came
to
in
come from a
here.
microphone.
Yeah,
That was bizarre, wasn't it?
that was.
Well, we're recording, so hopefully that will play back. That's really cool. Can you say something really loud into this microphone?
I heard that hello.
Slow down. Yep. I thought that one was interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, this one, again, this is after we heard a little weird electronic interference in the broadcast. You hear, Pete will begin your training. Any children or women? Is there any children around? Can you knock if there's a child around? There's the interference. Any children or women? Is there any children around? Can you knock if there's a child around? Pete will begin your training.
Huh.
Yeah, that one's pretty wild, but hard to understand. And of course, another knock, or I think it's a female saying, I heard people.
Please knock once for yes, two for no.
That was a faint one.
That was a faint one. So once. So somebody's here from the earthquake. Please knock once for yes, two for no.
That was a faint one.
That was a faint one. So once,
woman
so
whispering.
somebody's
Heard that one
here from the
very clearly.
earthquake.
Here it is again. She's whispering.
Okay. Wow, I hear her clearly.
I heard people. So there you go. That was our results from last week. I know it's not a lot of great stuff, but I thought, you know what, let me just play you what I've got. It's short, it's quick. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of it you can clearly hear, especially that last one.
Yeah,
Over
the
Sire,
whisper.
I heard people.
Yep.
And it's a woman's voice.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. We're going to do another seance. We're thinking for our Halloween show next month, we might hold another seance perhaps. And we can, of course, record again and see what we can capture here in the studio. You never know who might come around.
Yeah, we were thinking about next time, since it's Halloween, calling in loved ones that we know, that we personally know. But you never know who might come in. With seances, these things just happen.
Exactly.
They're spontaneous, yeah.
So we'll have to experiment. I know we want to try seances and do a little different kinds of things, EVP sessions, which is
Absolutely.
I'm always kind of doing when we do seances anyway, because you never know what you're going to pick up.
Right. It's always good to have something. If we have the modern equipment for something like that, it's always good to have a recording so that we can record the results later. I'm sure if that equipment was available back in that time, they would have used it too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we come back from the station music break here, we're going to start taking some calls. We're going to talk about dreams. Our experiences, our own personal dreams and nightmares. And if you have any nightmares or dreams you'd like to share, we want you to call in. That number again after this next music break, so don't call until about 9:05. That'll be 628-444-3202. Again, 628-444-3202. So don't call in till about 9:05, and then we'll be back on the air and we'll start talking about dreams, and you can share some of your own personal experiences.
We definitely want to hear them.
I know I have some interesting experiences when I was younger as far as dreams and just experiences. Not so much as an adult, but I have an occasional. I've had a good doozy nightmare, which I'll talk about. I've never had another one before or after that's been as frightening or had me as panicked in my life. And I don't know if you've had one of those in your life that's so bad nothing else has ever topped it as far as a nightmare.
I've had some pretty scary experiences while I've been dreaming that stand out.
Okay.
I'll be talking about those, and plus some experiences I've had in my 30s and as a child. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so when we come right back, we're going to, like I said, we're going to take a little station break and a little music break here, and we're going to come back, and we are going to delve right into dreams, folks.
Into your
That's
dream
tonight's
life.
topic here on Ecto Portal.
Alex Gardner has a unique talent, and even he doesn't know what it can do.
No one has ever done it before. No one has even conceived of doing it before.
Going into another person's dream. You might have to see that to believe it.
He is about to enter a world that no one has ever seen before. The world of your dreams.
I was under the impression we were conducting scientific research here.
You sound as if you don't approve.
I can see you're going to be a real challenge to work with.
Oh, wait a minute, Doctor. I haven't agreed to anything yet.
There's somebody in my dreams.
Who?
An awful, ugly monster.
This kid is being eaten alive and nobody gives a damn.
Whatever his demon is, you have to help him face it.
Welcome.
Now we're back, and we're discussing our topic tonight of dreams.
Yep.
And of course, anybody wants to call in and share dreams or a dream or a nightmare with us, you surely can do that. If you want to call 628-444-3202. Again, 628-444-3202. And we'll have you on and we'll talk about your dreams or your nightmares. So have you ever had a really wonderful dream, Verna?
I've had a wonderful dream, and I've had some scary dreams, and I've had just some very strange and interesting dreams.
Give us a wonderful dream, like your most wonderful dream you've ever had.
My most wonderful dream I've ever had. I think my most wonderful dream I've ever had was when I was walking around with my father, and my father and I were just having this long talk.
Was he still around then?
No,
Okay.
he was passed away for many years since then, but actually it was about 5 years ago, and I think he came to comfort me because I just lost Mom, and he knew it was a hard transition for me. I was kind of going through a transition period. So he came and he just had a long talk with me. It was the kind of long talk I always wanted to have with him, but we never had that chance because he died when I was 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one wonderful dream.
Nice.
And then the other one was, I think I've told this one a couple times before, when I was doing some research on a book that I was writing, and it was on a historical person, and I wanted to find out a little bit more information about the epitaph on this person's gravestone. So I went ahead and I tried looking it up, and I couldn't find it, and I thought, well, I can get to that chapter later. It's towards the end of his life, so I don't really need to have it now. So I went to sleep, and I had a dream, and then he showed me an image. This person actually came in my dream, and he said, here, use this. And he showed me a picture of a pansy flower, like a yellow, and it was like your typical
Right.
yellow and purple pansy. So that image stayed in my mind till I woke up, and I wrote it down. And I thought, now, why would this person want me to use a pansy flower? So I just thought, well, let's just go with it. So I went ahead and I went to a botanic, actually I went into Gifts of the Goddess, and I looked up this herbal book where they had nicknames of flowers. So I looked up pansy, and one of the nicknames was Love Lies a Bleeding. And I thought, wait a minute, Love Lies a Bleeding, that's a play by Beaumont and Fletcher. And it's called Philister or Love Lies a Bleeding. And this person was very influenced by that play. So I went ahead and I decided, so I collect old books, and I actually had a copy of the play. I was very lucky.
Mm-hmm.
So I went ahead and I took a copy of the play, and I was reading it. And in the play, in the paragraph, I read, all your better deeds shall be in water writ. And on this person's epitaph, it says, here lies one whose name was written in water. So he gave me the answer to that question.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure all this, you made the connections probably at the end of that, not probably as you went a little bit, but you probably tied all the ends together at the end of that once you figured that out.
Right. Well, I read his biography before, and people were wondering, some of the biographers said, well, maybe his epitaph came from this, maybe it came from that. And, you have to research these things, but I never expected to have a dream about it. And so I found it in the play because he told me, use this, and I looked up the meaning of the flower, and it was the title of that play.
How unusual.
Yeah, so that's how I got that, and that's something that sticks out in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had now I can't think if I ever had a really, really super pleasant dream that I don't remember it, if I did.
Yeah.
An unusual dream I had maybe a year ago. I was deep sound sleep, and I heard, it was in this, I don't know, it was in a neighborhood. There was lots of tall trees. The sun was setting in the afternoon. It was like dusk. Everybody, I was with some group in a store, so it was like storefronts along a street, but there were really tall trees. The trees were almost taller than the buildings. And we were all huddled in this store, and this vehicle was driving down the street, and I don't remember what the vehicle looked like, but it had a loudspeaker on the top of it, and somebody was actually calling out on the loudspeaker as it went down the street slowly, attention, nobody is allowed on the streets after curfew. If you want to go to the museum, it is closed for the day. You'll have to come back tomorrow. nobody is allowed on the streets after curfew. And it would continue on down the street saying this.
That almost sounds like something during World War II.
I know, isn't it weird? And everyone I was with was very quiet and silent and sat in this store. I think it's a store. And including me, I didn't know. I mean, I don't really remember faces. I just know I was with other people.
Do you remember if it was a certain era, everybody was dressed a certain era, or was
no,
everybody
I don't remember enough details of the people
yeah.
because I was sitting with them rather than looking at them.
Okay.
And we were facing the street outside the windows and doors, which are closed. Was this everybody, nobody should be in the streets after curfew. The museum is closed, which I thought was an interesting little notation. Mm-hmm. The museum is closed and will not be open until tomorrow. So I don't know what, and like I said, the sun was warm and still going down through the trees. Is interesting. I don't know what was going on or why that happened. But
so if the museum was closed, it means that something old was
locked
away to you. That something from the past is locked away to you.
But the curfew, what's that about?
The curfew, yeah, that's a good one.
You know, everybody has to be off the streets. Now, what does that say? Is someone telling me something everyone needs to do? I don't know.
It's telling you that you can't go past a certain point. Is there something that you need to stay and take a look at before you move further?
It could be.
Yeah.
Evaluate something. But it was so loud in my head when I started to wake up. It literally, like I described in my blog post today, it just sounded like someone speaking, like you were standing there. It wasn't like a memory. It wasn't just a vision. It was vocally loud. It was so loud as I was waking up, it woke me up even quicker.
So you felt like you were literally out of your body rather than asleep and just having a dream and seeing it in your mind.
Like wherever I was there at that moment in time. Now, this is where I discussed in my blog and my theory on we have a waking life and we have a dream element life that we also share at the same time.
Right.
So when we sleep on our physical body, our elemental life wakes up. And that whole experience is in that era or that wherever that plane of existence is happens. And we have memories from that bleed over. And then when we wake up in the morning, the elemental may simmer down. The physical takes over. The logical thinking body and mind takes over. And physically you're walking around having experiences, talking to people. And you get weird memories of things that, why should you? You've never done this. Maybe you have done this. Maybe you are doing this somewhere else. So we have two existences. That could be why we become sad for no reason. We're happy for no reason. We may have found something else out in our other existence that was so powerful it bleeds over.
It's affecting us in our conscious life. Yeah.
So I think dreams might just be a way of shifting focus to that life and experience, and then when you wake up, you're shifting it back over to your physical life. It's almost like a teeter-totter.
On the other hand, though, it does blend in with your physical life, because if anybody has ever sat down and really started to daydream, and then all of a sudden their daydream started taking a life of their own, and the daydreams started becoming more vivid, and then all of a sudden somebody has to snap them out of it. You realize that it does bleed over into your waking life. And you can consciously sit there and dream even when you're not asleep.
That's true.
Yeah, because daydreaming is just as powerful as night dreaming. People don't realize that.
Well, you're letting go of your constraints on your thinking. You're just letting your mind relax.
You're letting it wander, and that's where your visualizations, and that's where a lot of your things that you need to look at, things that you're fantasizing about that you want to do, start to take shape. I say pay very close attention to your daydreams, and sometimes you'll end up seeing or thinking about something that you weren't aware of. And they're just as important as your night dreams, I feel.
They are. I mean, I myself, when I have a prominent dream, or there's someone says something really loudly, a sentence or two, or gives me names, I write them down as soon as I wake up. I write the phrase down. I write the scenario, how it sounded, what was going on during it, if I heard something else or someone else.
Always good to write the
that.
details.
Man, woman, I mean, I just write it down.
Good.
Who knows if it has any correlation to each other, but sometimes I've gone back and I go, oh, that's interesting. I don't even remember writing that down, because when you have dreams, as soon as you wake up, they're pretty fresh. Some of it. You're going to have pieces, but certain phrases, images, and the longer you wait to write it down, you're going to forget this piece, the end of that piece. Oh yeah, this happened. So it's best to write those down as soon as you have that dream and you wake up. You have that pen, you have that paper, you write that down. Because, I mean, everyone should keep a dream journal. It's
Everybody
just interesting.
Should. It's important because you never know what you're picking, what your subconscious is picking up on. And you can go back weeks of like a week later, a month later, and you'll say, oh my God, that was very important. Or a name came up or something that happened that's already taking shape in your life, and you dreamed about it and you didn't realize. An example.
It's validity, really.
Yeah, it's validity, and it's good that because you bothered to write it down. An example of things taking shape in our life before they take shape in our dreams before they take shape in our life. You know my cat Apollo, my golden tabby. Yep. I actually dreamed of him a year before I got him, and Phoebe was still alive, and Phoebe and Tobit were both still alive, in fact. I know Tobit was very ill. He was having heart problems, and Phoebe was very old, and she was getting skinnier and skinnier, so I knew they weren't going to live very long, but they hadn't died yet. But I dreamed that I was in this place where it looked like a motel, and I opened my door, and this golden tabby walks in the door, and my two cats are sitting there like statues watching him. And he walks in the door, and they both kind of looked at the cat like they approved, and they both looked at me. And he comes up to me, and I'm petting him, and then all of a sudden he just stays in the room, and he stays with me. So I remember getting up and writing this dream down and forgetting about it because I was not planning to get a third cat. Right. So I forgot about it.
Let me just write this down.
I wrote it down, and I actually remember talking to my sister about it, and I remember telling my mother was still alive, and I said, I dreamed that I got an orange tabby, and my mother said, oh, don't you dare go in the shelters and go look for it now, and I said, oh, no, I can't get a third cat. I was caring for 2 senior cats. That was enough work. Yeah. So after they died, obviously I forgot about it, and then I remember when this person who was caring for these stray cats told me, the orange one really needs a home. Can I show him to you because I think you're a really good cat owner. I think he would really like you. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll see him, but I'm not planning to get a cat. My cat just passed away. So she brought him over, and I recognized him as the cat in my dream. So he became my cat.
It's almost, and I wonder, I think of Native Americans and how they say when one person dies, it's because they're making way for a new friend or someone else coming who's going to be close to you. And it just sounds like a similar experience.
Very
where
similar.
That cat showed up in your dream and said, hey, I'm coming. The other cat passed away.
Right. And both of them, and he came after they both passed away. Interesting thing, they were both in my dream, and they actually sat there looking like they were approving of him, and I didn't know what it meant at the time. And I actually had a tarot reading about this cat too, but I'll talk about that when we do tarot, when we do a subject on tarot another time. But I do remember clearly having that dream about him, and then suddenly he's in my life, this cat.
Wow.
Yeah. And my friend Jill in England, I remember I told her about the dream, and then I messaged her and I said, Jill, he's here. She goes, who's here? And I took a picture of him. She goes, it's the cat in your dream, because she remembered the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I'll write stuff down from dreams, and I'll read it back later and go, I have no idea what that means. None of this ever happened, or has no real connection. I get a lot of names in my dream. A lot of names. A whole lot of names. Now, I don't know if I'm just getting visitations a lot in my dreams from all these random people.
Could be.
Like, what is that ghost hunter up to? I don't know. Let's go visit him. But It's interesting.
Or names or they could be names of people you haven't met yet, or names of people that haven't came into your life yet. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, they're all written down if they are. What's interesting though is I get a lot of EVPs of somebody named Pete, and oddly enough, when Pete, and when my mom, just before she died, she was in the hospital, in and out of the hospital, with respiratory failure, congestive heart failure too.
So sorry.
So she was in the hospital and she was near death, and she said she saw a man that wasn't really a priest. He was in a gray suit, a black turtleneck, no collar.
Yeah.
But she said he came in, sat down next to her bed, spoke with her, was very, very gentle, soft voice. And she said, well, she was worried about, am I going to die? And he said, no, you're not going to die. You're not supposed to go yet. You're going to be just fine. So get healthy.
That's great. She got that reassurance.
Yep. And she asked the nurse when he left, well, who was the priest that came in? She said, well, there's no priest that came in. We've been watching you all afternoon. Nobody's been allowed to come see you.
Amazing.
And she said, oh, that's odd. And then she got out of the hospital. Maybe 6 months later, she went back in the hospital again, very serious. And this was just before she died, literally. She was in her room by herself. Again, the same guy. It's a different hospital. Different hospital.
Wow.
Same guy comes in, sits down, and she says, oh, hello. And she goes, I saw you before. And he said, yes, you did. And she said, well, am I going to be okay? He says, no, I think this is the time you're going to go. So what you need to do, which is important, is tell everyone you want to say goodbye to, you do it now, within the next couple days. Because this is your time, and you need to take care of that. No matter what, just ask them to come say goodbye. So he left. Again, she asked the nurse, did you see that guy in the gray suit who came in? Ma'am, there was no gray suit, man in a gray suit.
No such person in the vicinity.
Yep, so immediately she contacted everyone, me, my brothers, her brothers, everyone she could think of to come say goodbye, and they did. And as soon as the last person did, she died.
She died. Oh, wow. I'm so sorry. What an experience.
But
at least she got to do it.
And she told me that story because she knew I would understand it.
She knew you would believe it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. But then I get this guy, Pete, in my EVP steady. I always hear the voice come up. He's around me all the time. So it just makes me wonder, is this any correlation?
Is it the same person?
I don't know.
He never told her his name?
No, Pete.
No, her.
Yeah,
when he talked.
Pete.
Right.
That's
so
why
it's the
I'm
same
saying
person.
that's the strange connection. I don't know if that really is the correlation, but I find it interesting that all the EVPs I get, I capture the name Pete, and she saw someone named Pete who was an older gentleman in a gray suit.
Maybe next time, if you feel the courage to ask, you should ask Pete, are you the same Pete who visited my mother?
Exactly. I've never done that. You think
I would
have?
About it?
No, I never actually thought of that.
Well, that's because at the time, it just happens and you don't plan it. But
well, what's interesting, me and my mother always had the belief together, death isn't the end. Death is just the end of the first part, the first act.
It's just a transition.
And that we may see each other in a different way, in a different form, in a different atmosphere, in a different way. You may not know who each other is, but, it's not the end. We just had the feeling that it wasn't the end. Don't be horribly sad. This is just the end of the first act. I'm going first. You'll go later. That's how life is. And I didn't have a fear of it, but as she got nearer to death, I noticed she got more spiritual and religious than she'd ever been in her life. And I don't know if she clung to it because she was afraid suddenly, and that was comforting. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's interesting. I guess you'll really never know until you're that person in that situation. And maybe we all will be. I don't know. Spiritual in different ways.
It's interesting to talk about that the dreams of the dying are very similar, but yet very different than the dreams of the living, because when my mother got very, very ill, she started having dreams about people that she knew in her life, but that she never had dreams of before.
Isn't that odd?
Yeah. One of them was my stepfather. my stepfather, who she actually went out with for 17 years. She was dating him while she was caring for my dad, who was very sick, and her and my dad were already getting divorced. But she was dating him she dated him for many years, and he became my stepfather. But after he passed away, she never dreamed about him ever. And then maybe the last couple of years of her life, she told me when I came over one day, she said, "You're not going to believe who I dreamed about." And she told me that she saw only the back of him. He was talking with somebody, but he didn't turn around and look at her.
Interesting.
But she saw him twice. And she started to get scared. And she told me, she said, "I don't know why I'm dreaming about him. I've never dreamed of him." And I knew in my mind, I thought, oh boy, he's waiting for her. Okay, this is coming close. I knew it, but of course I couldn't say that to her because that would have freaked her out.
Yep. We're going to go right down from dreams into nightmares. So we know we've both had nightmares, and want to go ahead and start? Tell me your worst nightmare.
My worst nightmare. Okay, I haven't had that many nightmares, but I would say the worst one. It was partly nightmare, and I was partly awake. I mean, it woke me up out of a deep sleep. I was in bed one night, and I thought I saw somebody standing next to my bed. And I looked, and there was a tall man standing there. He was all in white. He had blonde hair, kind of a weird milky complexion and milky blue eyes. But he looked like I don't know, it's just his expression on his face. And you know the Crusaders from back in the Middle Ages, when they had the Red Crusaders cross?
Right.
He had the Red Crusaders cross emblazoned on him. And for some reason...
Was it on armor or suit or just on him?
It looked like armor, actually. Now that I think about it, it looked like armor. And the Red Crusaders cross was emblazoned on this armor.
Interesting.
And he was just standing there, and he was just looking at me like he didn't like me, or there was just like very judgmental. It was like a sinister expression on his face. And it was so unexpected, I didn't know what to do, that I actually screamed bloody murder in the middle of my room.
Did he say anything to you?
No, he didn't. And I actually remembered a prayer in my head that I was taught as a child, that whenever you're scared about something, to go ahead and repeat it. So I just repeated it in my head because it just came back from childhood. Now, if I remember the prayer, I would repeat it here on the air. I don't remember it, but if I find it, I'll put it on the page.
Okay.
But anyway, the minute I repeated that, it's like he flew. It's like I literally saw him disappear and flow off in the air. It was freaky.
Did he just vanish, or
he flew up?
Flew
I
up,
mean,
okay.
it's like he was disappearing and he was flying up, and he just disappeared. And I was shaking my head off, and then my sister came actually running in the room. And when you wake Linda up, it's not a pretty picture.
Oh my God!
Linda hates being woken up.
Really?
So she was, but this time she wasn't angry or anything. She was just going, "What the hell's going on? What happened?"
Oh my God! Linda's awake.
Yeah, Linda's. That's it. That exactly. So she had to calm me down for almost 10 minutes because that was really vivid. It was part dream and part out-of-body experience where I just woke up and saw this in my room.
Wow.
That's what you definitely call a nightmare.
Definitely a nightmare.
Yeah. Now, what about yours? Your turn.
Sound asleep. It's a weird dream I'm having. I can actually describe the dream until I woke up. I was walking along a road, an old dirt road in, let's say, Ohio, for example. I've only been to Ohio once, and that was not too long ago. But this was back in the 90s, early 90s. Walking along this cornfields on both sides of the road. It's a dirt road. And then I'm not in the dream anymore. I'm a witness to it. I'm in the car. Somebody else is driving. I'm in the back seat. And we drive slowly down this road by these cornfields, and on the side of the road is a wheelbarrow with a woman in a very thin white dress, completely covered in mud. She's barefoot. She's holding a baby with her in her arms in this wheelbarrow. She's literally plopped down into the wheelbarrow holding the baby. She's not moving. The baby's not moving, and they're covered in mud. Next
That
thing
almost
you know,
sounds like a picture out of the Depression.
it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, the car continues down this road, and I'm in the back seat. I don't know who's driving the car, where we're going. Next thing you know, this baby is climbing up, standing on the front seat, looking in the back. So the head pops up, the little hands pop up over the seat, looking at me in the back seat. Next thing I know, I look, and this was, I'll never forget this image. The baby had a mechanized eye, a single mechanized eye, and its
freaky.
mouth was robotic teeth.
Ooh.
And it just freaked me out so bad, and I was so terrified that I jumped up,
horrible.
and I was on my feet and then landed on the ground. That's how fast I moved. I was so frightened, and I was panicked. I was out of breath, and I never ever had a dream that vivid. And that's where my friend said, "Oh, well, Lilith obviously visited you in your dream, because Lilith likes to visit men in their dreams and appear to them and scare them."
Now, how did your friend know it was Lilith? Why did he?
Because of the woman that was in the wheelbarrow, and I was curious of why she was there. She was with a child, and I don't know what, he looked it up, or he knew enough that he just said it sounds like a Lilith made an appearance.
You know what I would do? If you're curious enough, I would go ahead and look up symbols of women in wheelbarrows and see what you can come up with mythology wise, and see if there's any stories or any mythical correlations with that. I mean, your friend probably did a good job looking on his own, but if it's a woman in a wheelbarrow, it could have a mythical connection with that.
It could. I mean, the fact that they were both covered in mud, is cornfields on both sides. I mean, there's a whole lot of symbolism in that dream.
Right, there really is.
So, and it was, I want to say it was like a 30s style car. So maybe it was, the Depression. Maybe it was the 20s.
Yeah, for some reason I kept getting the Depression.
Yeah.
It sounded like a picture right out of that.
So maybe that's what that was. That's weird.
It could have been, and for all you know, it could have been a past life dream. I don't know if you feel like you lived in the Depression. Now, there are past life dreams where you see yourself in another era, you see yourself interacting.
I've never done that myself. I mean, I've seen an old cabin in the woods that's grown over, and I've gone back to it several times. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that I've ever reoccurring that I know of that I've gone back to. I haven't had that dream in like 15 years now, but yeah, I haven't had anything where I'm like see myself in another time era or anything.
Did you ever find out where this old cabin was located that you keep dreaming about?
No, I actually drew it once. I actually sketched it in my diary kind of journal book. I sketched it just because I didn't want to totally forget it, and I haven't had it since. But I did sketch it, and I knew what the steps looked like, the front steps, and it didn't really have much of a roof left. It's really bizarre. It was very grown over, moss, trees covering it.
I keep thinking about the Mark Twain cabin that I recently visited, but that's not overgrown with moss or anything like that. So, but it reminds me of when you talk about it.
All right, we got about 2 minutes to wrap this dreams episode up.
Well, believe it or not, I interpreted a dream for somebody this morning.
Did you?
I did. It was so literal. You know how dreams can have a literal meaning to them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a friend talking to me this morning, and she told me, she said, well, I had a dream where there was one of those blood-sucking bugs that suck blood out of your arm. And she said, then I just kept, flicking it off. And she said, what do you think that means? And I said, well, if it's sucking blood out of you, is there something draining you or sucking the life out of you lately? And she said, oh, yeah. She said, a well-meaning friend has been talking to me, and she's been trying to talk to me about my problems, but, it's getting a bit much. And I said, well, that's very easy. She needs to stop bugging you. The dream is saying that you need to stop being bugged.
Literally. Flick that bug off.
Bug off.
Stop bugging me.
That's what the dream means.
I love it.
Yeah. So sometimes you look at it and you think about what's going on in your life, and then you have to sort of literally translate it. And that's what I did this morning with a friend.
People look for deeper meaning. You're like, no, it's on the surface, literally.
It's on the surface, literally.
There's a bug on you. Bug off.
There's a bug on you. Bug off.
Interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's that was from this morning. And I love interpreting dreams. I was hoping that people can call, and I would have been happy to interpret a couple, but next time.
We'll do another show on dreams and have people call in.
Oh, yeah, this won't be the first time. We'll get back to this subject.
And they can give us either a dream or a nightmare, and we'll discuss it, and you can interpret it.
Oh, I'd love to do that. And, it doesn't have to be the subject about dreams. If we ever get people calling in and you have a dream, even if we're not talking about it, if you say, Verna, can you interpret that? I will definitely try my best.
All right, so next week we're going to have Psychic Investigating with special guest Jeff Dwyer.
Oh, yep, Jeff Dwyer is going to be on.
Author of several books on hauntings in different states and different cities. He's done a San Francisco book, which is great, and is recently updated. He's always working on a new book.
He's always working on some new projects. I have some questions about some projects that he's working on,
Exactly.
so it'll be good to talk to Jeff.
He works with Ghost Adventures and helps them out sometimes, and he does a lot of events. He's done events for us in the past, so he's a great guy, and we look forward to him being on the show.
Yeah, stay tuned, and for Jeff, it'll be a good show.
All right, folks. So that ends another episode of Ecto Portal. You all can return to your normal lives.
And return to your dreams and start writing them down, everybody.
Exactly. Write those dreams down. Till next week. See you later.
Bye. See you next week.
Ecto Portal.